Hollywood insiders reveal that Brolan turned down a $2 million role to stay at home with Barbara Streryand. The man who kept a journal of their daily lives with her is now writing the hardest entries yet. Brolan proposed 3 times before she said yes, and he recently told producers he can't commit. As medical bills pile up after their 25th anniversary last year, the couple faces their biggest challenge yet. Their separate bank accounts are finally merging. James Brolan was born Craig Kenneth Brolin on July 18, 1940, during a sweltering heat wave in Los Angeles. The temperature was 103 degrees on that day. Henry, a successful contractor, narrowly avoided the heat wave and arrived at the hospital just 12 minutes before Craig was born. Henry had a very regimented household, and even as a young child, Craig had daily chores and weekly behavior reviews. Helen, Craig's mother, had a past as a film extra, but she never told him she didn't want to. As a shy child, Craig spent 45 days in the hospital for severe asthma when he was 7 years old. Despite this, his bright mind allowed him to excel academically, and 9 years old, he disassembled and reassembled his father's watch. At 15, his teachers couldn't have predicted his obsession with James Dean, and for 6 months, beginning at 17, Craig rode his bike secretly. Miles to Griffith Park alone, he imitated Dean's every move, from his voice to his appearance. In his room, he concealed 73 James Dean clippings behind a poster. With the money he saved from delivering newspapers, he purchased an 8mm camera and filmed 24 silent reenactments with children from the neighborhood. After Dean's death in a car crash, Craig went silent for 11 days. Unbeknownst to him, his drama teacher discovered one of his short films and sent it to UCLA, where it received an honorable mention. Nicholas Ray, the man who... Craig's dream of acting was finally realized when he directed Dean in Rebel Without a Cause. Despite his extreme shyness, which caused him to throw up before every audition, he was advised by the studio to change his name from Brolan to James because they thought it sounded too German. Short names with hard sounds were more popular, so Craig had 7 meetings fighting against the suggestion. Ultimately, the studio prevailed because Craig's dad was obsessed with James Dean. After a year of not communicating, Brolan's mom sent his new headshot to relatives in an effort to explain James's 214 sleepless nights and how the studio had told him he was acting too much like Dean, exactly what they had requested. In 1966, Brolan landed small roles on the Batman TV show, starting as a bank teller. The director liked his money-dropping skills, so he got more screen time. Months later, another director cast him as the Eraser without realizing he had been on. Despite being cast twice before, no one on set noticed when Adam West cast him in a third role. In 1967, he was homeless, living in a 1958 Chevy and taking advantage of the gym showers at Fox Studios. Everything fell apart when he starred in The Cape Town Affair, a film he had warned would bomb due to its bad script and cultural issues. No one listened, and the film tanked. He was fired while visiting. He became a mechanic in Van, New York, fixing cars for people who had no clue he was once a rising star. But then fate intervened. A Universal executive brought in his car for repairs and was impressed by Brolan's work ethic. The executive offered him a screen test, and Brolan's life took a dramatic turn. He became Dr. Stephen Kiley on Marcus. Starting in 1969 and running until 1976, WellBMD starred Brolan as a young doctor who rode a motorcycle to work with an older partner. The show was a smashing success, and Brolan won an Emmy and 2 Golden Globes in 1970. By the time it was in its 2nd season, the show had become ABC's most watched program, and it dealt with weighty medical topics like cancer, depression, and Alzheimer's. However, An episode involving homosexuality sparked protests, but Brolan remained dedicated to meaningful storytelling, and in 1972, he took. In the darkly comedic film Skyjacked, he co-starred with Charlton Heston as a troubled Vietnam War veteran who hijacks a plane. Critics praised his performance, saying it demonstrated that Brolan could go beyond his image as a placid doctor. In the 1973 science fiction smash Westworld, he played the role of John Blaine, an assured tourist at a theme park where robots posed as humans. The film was groundbreaking in its use of early digital effects, and Brolan brought his signature style to the screen. Midway through the film, the character is killed in a shocking scene. The twist added intensity to the rest of the film, and Brolin's performance provided depth and contrast. In 1979, Brolan tackled horror with his role as George Lutz in the Amityville Horror. He was initially hesitant about the project, but when his pants fell off a chair while he read the script, he took it as a sign. The film was a huge success, earning over $80 million at the box office. Brolin's performance as a man slowly unraveling was chilling. It reflected the. In the late 1970s, he and co-star Margot Kerr had a tense relationship, but it served the plot. In 1985, Brolan showed his comedic side in a cameo appearance in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, where he played a phony version of Pee-wee as a charming secret agent, a clever reference to his near James Bond role. At the same time, he starred in the 5-year TV series Hotel, which established a solid career for Brolan. In it, he played the role of a dashing secret agent. Barbara Streryand was born in Brooklyn on April 24, 1942, to Diana, a school secretary, and Emmanuel, a respected lawyer. During that run, Peter McDermott, the polished manager of a posh San Francisco hotel, had new drama, guests, and Brolan at his center. He even directed a few episodes. During that time, he received 2 Golden Globe nominations and met the woman who would become his wife, Jan Smithers. Tragically, Barbara's father passed away suddenly from a seizure when she was only 15 months old. With only $250 in savings, the family had to relocate to live with Barbara's grandparents. Although Barbara never met her father, she discovered a note he had written in her baby book. In 1949, her mother remarried, and Barbara gained a half-sister. Unfortunately, life wasn't to get any better from there. Despite her stepfather's icy demeanor and his threat to crush her spirit, 16-year-old Barbara left home in 1958. She lived on friends' couches, old mattresses, and even summer fire escapes for a year and a half. The only possessions she had were 3 outfits, 2 pairs of shoes, and 12 records. Despite this, she maintained perfect attendance at school and studied at libraries and diners. Barbara worked as a part-time usher for 75 cents an hour, earning just $17 a week. She stretched her money by visiting her mother twice a week, right before dinner, so she could eat without looking homeless. For 3 years, she wore the same coat, fixing it, and even dyeing it a different color with leftover costume supplies. By 1960, she was making just over $46 a week, and she watched The Sound of Music more than 100 times. She had every scene memorized, and would go into the theater alone to practice her singing before work. One night, a stage manager overheard her and asked who she was, thinking she was an understudy. She boldly claimed she was auditioning, even though it wasn't on the spot. 2 days later, she was performing for $18 at a nightclub, twice her usual pay, but the theater fired her for breaking the rules. It didn't matter. She had recently embarked on her first foray into the entertainment industry. Prior to that, she had never taken a voice lesson. Instead, she had honed her craft by practicing in public spaces like subways and stairwells, monitoring the reverberation and drawing modest audiences. That same year, she stayed with her friend Barry Dennen in an overcrowded, cramped apartment. Dennen persuaded her to record 3 songs on an old reel-to-reefer. Barbara had to maintain a precise 27 inches from the microphone. When they played back the tape, Barry was so shocked that he dropped his coffee mug. The night everything changed came in September 1960, when an 18-year-old Barbara strutted onto a nightclub stage in a $6 dress she had gotten from a thrift store. He played the tape for 14 individuals in the music industry, some of whom didn't believe it was real. One record executive, for example, believed the recording had been professionally engineered and refused to believe that the singer was an untrained teenager. Eventually, the truth came out, and that raw recording ended up in the Library of Congress. With mismatched earrings, she had already been turned down for 7 auditions that month due to being too strange-looking. One producer even went so far as to say she had a $1 million voice but a 5-cent face. However, that night, she performed Cry Me a River and a hilarious cover of Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf. The audience fell silent, then clapped for nearly 5 minutes. The judges gave her perfect scores, which had never happened before. One critic even went so far as to say that her nose might become as iconic as her voice within 2 months later. She had accrued 23 paid gigs, proving that talent was more important than conforming to beauty standards. In 1961, she took a daring step by changing her name from Barbara to Barbara, dropping the second A. She claimed that this decision made her stand out more, and she continued to sing the unconventional songs she loved. Despite a freezing cold night, when only 7 people showed up to her show, she continued to perform as if the venue were packed, refusing to change who she was to fit in. The move paid off. Arrived on Broadway in 1962, she played the role of Miss Marlstein in the musical I Can Get It For You Wholesale. Despite having a 103 degrees fever the day before the audition, she showed up anyway. The directors considered cutting her big scene because it was too strange, but she fought for it anyway. On opening night, the audience made her sing it 3 times. Despite being a supporting actor, she was the center of attention. The newspaper even called her the funniest thing on Broadway since Fanny Brice. Her initial salary was $175. Barbara had complete creative control over her first album, which she released in 1963. Columbia Records initially printed 10,000 copies, fearing it would be a commercial failure due to its lack of hit songs and its focus on show tunes and ballads. However, the album sold 150,000 copies in just 1 month. Barbara even rejected a color cover in favor of a simple black and white photo, going against all marketing advice. The album went on to win her a Grammy for Album of the Year, beating out. In a brief speech, Sinatra explained, "This isn't luck. This is what happens when you don't listen to people who don't understand your vision." A year later, she portrayed Fanny Brice in Funny Girl. Despite initial disapproval, Barbara nailed the role. Investors withdrew over $1 million upon hearing the news, but Brice's daughter insisted that Barbara wasn't beautiful enough, too Jewish, or from Brooklyn. Played the part 867 times, missing just 2 performances. She continued performing even while sick with pneumonia, singing custom-written songs that showcased her unique voice. Despite a sprinkler breaking and soaking her in one part, the director adored her 5-octave range and decided to incorporate it into the play. Critics were harsh when the performance relocated to London, but by the end, tickets were selling like hotcakes. Her first special, My Name is Barbara, defied every rule. She began the show singing in the dark. Executives were terrified, but 71% of viewers tuned in. She was only 23 years old when she signed the $5 million, 10 special deal with CBS, but the contract gave her full control. CBS couldn't change anything without her approval. that night were tuned and she won 5 Emmy Awards. She even edited the whole show herself. The director later admitted he just followed her instructions. In 1968, Barbara Streryand stepped off the Broadway stage and into movie history. She starred in Funny Girl playing Fanny Brice, the same role that made her famous on stage. The film exploded in popularity and became the top-grossing movie of the year in the United States. Barbara's performance was so powerful she won the Best Actress at the Academy Awards. Her first feature film, Funny Girl, which earned 8 nominations and proved Barbara wasn't merely a stage star but a movie star as well. Years later, the film was preserved as a national treasure by the Library of Congress. But Barbara wasn't content to limit herself to musicals. In 1972, she took a risk with What's Up, Doc?, a wild comedy starring Ryan O'Neal, a script she initially despised and told reporters predicted it would bomb. But behind the scenes, writers rewrote Barbara's character to make her more comedic, while Noel Coward played the serious one. The result was a smashing success, earning Barbara $500,000, more than her co-star, and critical acclaim. The film went on to become a classic, topping lists of American comedies. The following year, Barbara co-starred with Robert Redford in the Barbara received another Oscar nomination and a Top Italian Film Award for Way We Were, which portrayed a Jewish activist and a charming writer during a politically charged period in America. The film's budget was just $5 million, but it made $50 million. Barbara's performance of the title song became the biggest hit of 1974, selling over 2 million copies and eventually being added to the Grammy Hall of Fame. By 1972, Barbara wanted more control over her work. Barbara began her own production company, Barwood Films. Her debut feature, Up the Sandbox, was an unconventional and daring depiction of a bored housewife's escape into fantasies. While the film bombed at the box office, critics praised its strong feminist message and drew comparisons to the likes of Greta Garbo. In the role she played in 1970's SIX's A Star is Born, she did more than just act. Evergreen, the film's theme song, was a huge hit, and Barbara not only co-wrote it but also became the first woman to win an Oscar for composing music. The song went on to win a Grammy and a Golden Globe, and Barbara's performance in the film earned her yet another Golden Globe. Evergreen is now considered one of Barbara's best songs. She had to fight for creative control in many of her early films, including her directorial debut, Yentl, which took 15 years to get made. Studios initially declined, but one eventually paid her $14. With a budget of $5 million, she worked for 20 days while wearing a disguise and directing a crew of 168 men. Some bet against her, but she succeeded, and the film went on to earn over $40 million. Despite this, one voter confessed that he didn't vote for her because she was a woman. Only 5% of major studio films were directed by women. In 1984, when Yentl received positive reviews, Barbara was not nominated for Best Director in a musical or comedy, but the Golden Globes instead created a separate award for her. The following year, the category vanished, and Barbara respectfully asked why they hadn't included her in the main directing category. Famous enough to be used as evidence of gender bias in Hollywood by Congress in subsequent years, Barbara refused to back down. In 1991, she returned to directing with The Prince of Tides. The script took 26 drafts and 3 years to shape. Filming took place in hurricane-ravaged South Carolina, where she hired dozens of locals who had lost their homes. The film earned 7 Oscar nominations and made $63 million. The Directors Guild finally honored her, making her the first woman to receive this honor. Barbara continued to make history in 1995, when she directed a concert special for HBO and won the Directors Guild Award for television directing, becoming the first woman to ever win in that category. The show had 11 cameras, 125 crew members, and 223 camera setups, all while she was battling a paralyzing phobia of public speaking stemming from an incident in 1967 when she misunderstood the lyrics, which prevented her from performing for 27 years. The show averaged 26 million viewers and earned $93 million. During the ceremony, Barbara raised attention to the fact that just three. Behind the scenes, Barbara's personal life took center stage 25 years after she had battled the DGA on that very subject, when only 7% of TV directing jobs had gone to women. Barbara Gould and her husband, actor Elliot Gould, had a son named Jason in 1966. At the time of their marriage, Barbara was leading a $1 million tour, and she loved being a mother. However, Gould's struggles with gambling and drug use caused marital strife. He sold their possessions to fund his habits, and Barbara worried about the impact on their son. The couple separated in 1969 and eventually divorced in 1971. The unlikely pairing of James Brolan, who had recently finished his second marriage and was $1, and Barbara Streryand, who was in her mid-50s and had experienced unsuccessful relationships, happened on a blind date on July 1, 1996. Linda Bruckheimer, who was $4 million in debt, hooked them up after canceling twice before Brandon was scheduled to meet. That night, he was planning to sleep with someone else, but he changed his mind. He took a Valium to calm his nerves. When he saw the man, he was clean-shaven and played a different character. They ended up conversing for 6 hours, and subsequently discovered they were just 3 years old. In the initial 30 seconds, while they were 4 miles apart in Los Angeles, Streryand inquired, "Who messed up your hair?" The phrase lingered with Brolan, even though she didn't mean it badly. His ex-wife had never complimented his looks in 11 years. Something in her gaze kept him from leaving, and the night came to a close at 3:27 a.m. And with her requesting a lock of his hair, which she preserved and now displays in a frame in their home with A. Brolan attempted to pop the question 3 times. The first time was 87 days after they met in a hot air balloon above Napa Valley. She later confessed in a handwritten note that she believed he was different from the 28 blind dates she had gone on over the previous 3 years. 9-carat diamond valued at $250,000, but she turned it down, citing a 2-year rule she instituted following a traumatic encounter with an ex-fiancé. The second time around, he kneeled down in front of 14 friends and sang her favorite childhood song on New Year's Eve 1997 in New York. She turned him down once more. The third time around, during a picnic at her Malibu home on March 15, 1998, he finally succeeded. This time, he gave her a 24-page letter outlining 98 reasons why they belonged together. Little did he know that she had been secretly engaged to another man when they first met. Called it quits after 5 dates. They tied the knot on July 1, 1998, precisely 2 years after their first date, for $1. The event started at 8:47 p.m. and cost $4 million. Security was high, with 37 guards, a no-fly zone, non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, and $250,000 fines. Brolan wore an Armani suit with diamond cuffings. At the ceremony, she composed a song called "I Finally Found You," which was performed by a children's choir from her foundation. At the reception, she delivered a speech at 11:43 p.m., marking the precise moment they first met. Guests included Tom Hanks, Oprah Winfrey, the Clintons, Marlon Brando, and Streryand, who wore a gown with a 27-foot train. For 27 years, Streryand battled insomnia. She became his cure. They had spent 642 nights together before the wedding, reading poetry, doing crossword puzzles, and sharing memories. They never told anyone else that night, and Brolan even played a piano piece he had secretly. The sentence had 273 words. Streryand had it framed. John Travolta revealed that Brolan had kept a journal detailing their shared experiences, which he intended to present to Barbara on their 25th wedding anniversary in 2023. The couple had separate bank accounts from the beginning of their marriage, a practice known as bifurcation. Brolan came up with the idea after losing $3 million in his second divorce. He claimed that they even split dinner bills every Tuesday, and that their combined wealth was $400 million. After Brolin's $60 million helped level the playing field, the couple shared a single account with $800,000 for the house. In an interview from 2023, Brolan claimed that this arrangement prevented the marital disaster that befell other Hollywood couples during the COVID-19 lockdown. As a result, their bond became even stronger, and they fell in love again after spending 425 consecutive nights together, waking up at 6:45 a.m. Their $35,000 Swedish mattress doubled as their headquarters, which they dubbed the boardroom. It had special support settings for both of them, spots for documents, and pillows that transformed into laptop stands. They watched The Crown and Bridgerton twice, and acted out scenes in costume. During lockdown, they even penned a 278-page journal that Brolan hinted could become a memoir. They achieved great success in their careers. Brolan said that most of their best ideas came from that quiet space when they fought. They followed strict rules, like not using phones, taking deep breaths every 30 steps, and walking in opposite directions. They spent 4 to 6 hours a day on that mattress, and even wrote songs for her 2018 album while lying there. The bedroom was soundproofed at a cost of $175,000. On one occasion, during a dispute over Streryand's book in 2019, the couple went for 7 walks spread out over 3 days. Even while on vacation, they requested separate walking paths from the hotel staff. Brolan mentioned that walking helped them relax and find solutions to problems without thinking about them. After 17 minutes, they came back and recorded their feelings in a journal. They had used this method at least 217 times before. Streryand was also actively involved in her passion for women's heart health. In 2014, she launched the Fight the Lady Killer campaign after being shocked to learn that heart disease kills more women than all cancers combined. She helped fund a heart center at Cedars-Sinai and pushed for more awareness. In 2018, she gave a major lecture at the National Institutes of Health, where she spoke about how women often get worse heart treatment than men. Her campaign helped reduce the number of deaths from 1 in 3 women to 1 in. In 2023, after 10 years of work, her memoir My Name is Barbara was published. It was 970 pages long and written entirely by hand. The idea for the book had been brewing since the 1990s, and even Jacqueline Kennedy had requested that she pen it. Critics lauded the book for its honesty and style, and Brolan made light of the fact that the author likely penned most of it while lying on their expensive mattress. As of 2025, Brolan is 83 years old and still going strong. He told People magazine, "I don't plan on stopping." While filming Ransom Canyon and narrating the final season of Sweet Tooth, he made a joke about Streryand's smaller filmography, but he more than made up for it with 97 features and 600 hours of television. His next project, Ransom Canyon, got him back into westerns, and he wished his character, Cap Fuller, had stayed longer on the show. Coincided with Brolin's completion of narrating all 3 seasons of Sweet Tooth, and it was shot spanning 150 miles in New Mexico. Brolan discussed his lengthy experience with horses, saying that directing remained his favorite, but acting kept him energized.